We have a lunation, a full moon in Libra that's a bit of a flashpoint on April the 12th. It happens to be square Mars in the condition of his fall. It's also going to take up energy from the Aries eclipse that we had at the end of the month of March. We're going to find that there's a quality about this eclipse. It's going to piece together a series of energies from prior eclipses throughout 2023 and 24. So we're going to tie it all together today, but I will say it simply. This is not an easy moon. In our own lives, we can break and cut and sever something in our lives, leave the job, leave the relationship, leave that social circle, leave that home, whatever it is. Something might want to change in the way of endings or cuttings or severings. In the world, it's not such a great lunation for the situation with Iran and Israel. That's where I see a lot of this playing out, and I'll be showing you why in the first part of the video, which is what we call mundane astrology or world astrology. And I know the world is full of bad stuff, and if you don't like that content, you can jump to your timestamp pinned to the description box, and in the chapters, when you click the more button where it says ... it opens up, or you click that, just click the headline, of the video, and you'll be able to jump to your sign. But I do want to talk about this because there's a lot going on in the sky that looks like, well, everybody's looking over at Ukraine, Russia, and understandably, people need to be looking back to the Middle East instead. That's where I see a lot of the pressure from this moon. And this moon is not just on the day of the moon. Of course, nothing is ever the day of the moon, which is the 12th of April. It's things that unfold over the 6 months that follow, but you'll see indications of storylines on the day of the moon. So let's get going, shall we? I'll show you a picture of the sky and you'll know what we're talking about. And then we'll do your sign. When I do your sign, I'm going to give you advice. I want you to be able to use this moon rather than have the moon use you. Cooler heads will prevail if you're careful and you don't lose your mind or your emotions in a very hot, tempered, debilitated, dog paddling in water, Mars in the sign of Cancer. By the way, who will be influenced the most by this moon, of course, is the Cancer and Capricorn, Libra, and Aries people. It's really going to hit you with a bit of a wallop. So please, if you have any of these placements for your sun, moon, and rising, please listen in today. As I said, I'm going to try to give you remedial or preventative or cooperative ways to work with the sky rather than ending up having it kind of grab you. The planets are called the grabbers and use you. All right, so we're going to get started. If you're new to my channel, welcome here. My name is Lori Lothian. I'm using the Western Tropical Zodiac and the whole sign houses. Fixed stars, minor asteroids, you know the gig. Check me out on Substack. Check me out on my Patreon community where everything is early access, ad free, and we do a ton of classes, 3 videos, 3 group calls a month. Also, you might want to check out my Cosmic Moonshine newsletter. And when you're a part of that newsletter, I have these flash contests and give away free content, free readings, free courses. And so check it out as well. Everything is in the description box below. If you want to join me there, I'd love to see you. All right, so let's get going and talk about this moon. I'll show you a picture right now of this lunation. I will say that the Sabian is weird. It's a butterfly with a third wing, a third left wing. So you could say aberrant, unusual, mutated energy coming off of this lunation. There, the moon is going to be at 23 degrees, just so you know, not 22. 23 degrees of the sign of Libra, and there's a chironic war wound meshed with the sun, and this combination is the wound of your Aries house, whatever that may be in your life, some situation that has been troubling you in the Aries part of your sky since 2019 as Chiron ingressed here, leaves fully in 2027, and this is a moon reflecting Chiron, a wound, and the sun. And therefore, there is a quality of our lives. It's also about the chironic wound. And this wound of some sort, I'll describe it when I get to your sign, is also a war wound. We had the Vietnam War, and we had the assassination of Martin Luther King and Robert Kennedy Sr. during the time when we had eclipses in Aries and Chiron coming into the sign of Aries in 68 and 69. There's a lot about our sky that has been rinse and repeat from that time in the United States history. And I do talk about that in other videos, but it's pretty well the same scenario. During the same kind of sky, the incumbent president decided not to run. The vice president, Humphreys, took over, lost the election to Nixon, who ran on promises of ending the Vietnam War. And that's exactly the kind of cycle we just went into, including student protests and sit-ins about the war in Vietnam, including this time students in universities also having protests and sit-ins, including a DNC convention in Chicago like the last time. So you'll see that these patterns do repeat. That's why we're still in danger territory for more people in power being unalived. Just keep that in mind. So what I want to mention, so this is taking us back to 1968, 69 kind of vibe over here. The moon is reflecting that light. The other thing I want to talk about is Mars. Like Mars is dog paddling his little body's moving as fast as he can in the sign of Cancer. He's in an uncomfortable position. He's exalts himself in the 10th house, and he's fallen in Cancer, and fallen maybe because it's a sign of the mother. And he's the god of war, and no mother wants her child to go to war, for example. So in the house of the moon, he's fallen. And so the moon, it's her temple. She's right over here. You can see her right over here. It's her temple, belongs to her. But she'll try her best to tell Mars to behave. She will try her best to tell Mars to behave. But she may not be able to do too much with him when he's in this emotional outburst and temper tantrum, and maybe fierce overreactive protectionism. And that's like the terraform, maybe that could also be hyper nationalism, things like that, and hyper, patriotism as well, or homeland defense as well. When you take people out of your country in the United States, and, deport them from the Cancer homeland, Mars is to kick them out, to cut them away, to push them out. So you see a lot of this energy been playing out already. It started September, October, then Mars was back in Cancer, retrograding in January 6th and going direct February 23rd, and finally leaving this part of our sky. For anyone who wants to check the history of this kind of Mars duration, from September through to mid-April, in and out of Cancer, that takes you back to September of 1977 through to April of 78. Very similar pattern involving also time in Leo. Now, one thing I want to tell you guys about here is that as this is going on, the lunation itself is ruled by, the full moon is ruled by a planet, and that's Venus. Venus is the ruler of Libra. It's interesting because in traditional astrology, we would say she's not seeing or witnessing the moon because she's in an aversion. In this case, what modern astrology calls a inconjunct or quincunx. And so maybe she can't manage the moon or help the moon. The moon is on her own, trying to deal with a gnarly, rabble-rousing, emotionally overreactive, harsh, fallen Mars in her temple. And Venus is busy dealing with all of this. The North Node is here. I don't have it drawn in for some reason. Let's add the North Node. Okay, hang on. I don't know why the North and South Node are missing. But she's busy as all heck over there in a bit of an enclosure between, she's getting ready to get into that enclosure. Is she? No, she's out of it. Okay, good news. So she was enclosed for the first 7 days of April between Saturn and the North Node. Sometimes that's been good for peace in the world, by the way, that coincided with the first ceasefire in the Middle East in the Israel-Gaza story back in January. So this enclosure will be over between the 1st of April and the 7th. As of my recording this today on April 1st, there's a news story that Netanyahu came out and said voluntary migration for Gazans following Trump's rebuilding plan, and they're going to annex and occupy the entirety of the Strip. And so, is that a peace situation that I see unfolding now on April 1st as Venus becomes enclosed for 7 days? Or is that simply there's going to be no more shooting and mass killing because you're just going to push people out of the Strip, out of the occupied territory, or try to? So we shall see. Now, I can see some parts of the world getting pretty upset, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, by this. And so we'll see what happens. Maybe there'll be another attempt at some kind of ceasefire. Now, lastly, because we're doing the world astrology, we're going to do your sign. I want to show you something, because I'm saying this is a sky that indicates you're going to make some major changes. Mars, actions and decisions are Mars, connected to your Cancer part of your chart, connected to your Aries and your Libra part of your chart. All right. This is an interesting moon because it also happens to be right on the ascendant of the nation of Israel. And this is going to repeat and rinse and rinse and repeat stories that have already been going on in the Middle East regarding this war. There is a series of energies here, including the first eclipse that happened at 21 degrees of Libra on the 14th of October, And that is exactly the eclipse with the south node that ignited the Middle East story. Happens every 18 years when eclipses move through Libra, that there is a war with Israel and its neighbors. So if you call it a war. And therefore, this moon is taking cue from that beginning in 23 October eclipse. It's actually back on the same place as the eclipse. In fact, it's right where the eclipse was. So we're going to say there's something about that eclipse. And, honestly, there's another technique called lunar shadows that I've just learned. And the lunar shadows technique says it also will take us back to a quarter moon that happened along the way. And I described that in another video. And I'm not going to go back and really dive into it again today too much, right? But it did correspond with Israel bombing Iran, and a retaliatory strike to Iran. So not the October one, but the one 9 months later. So there was a quarter moon at 22 Libra, 9 months after October of 2023, and it precisely correlates to 9 months later in 2024 when Israel bombed Iran. Why does that matter? Because Iran is coming up hot and heavy in this story. Let me show you a few things, right? And hopefully see that you can track this. That's Israel right on the outside wheel. Let's put in Israel's ascendant. And I will be doing a video on the election in Canada as we get closer to the April 28th election. So just be patient with me for those of you who are Canadian. I know it's nerve-wracking. So many scandals going on for the Liberal incumbent, Mark Carney, but you won't know about that if you watch lamestream media, unfortunately. But there's one scandal after the other, including compromised interest with China and more and more. But if you're just watching, CBC, which is our version of PBS, you're probably not getting the news. This is the outside ring. It's Israel. And you can see that Israel ascended is at 23 degrees and the moon is at 23 degrees. And I believe the eclipse back in the day in October of 2023 was at 21 or 2 degrees. So again, on the ascendant of Israel. And so you can say that this is going to be a full moon, full light, full energy, shining brightly on the nation's identity. And it can indicate things to do with also completion and endings. Now, if it was just a moon, I wouldn't be so worried. But Chiron, the war wound in the house of open enemies for the nation of Israel, a woundedness regarding its enemies, but on top of that, a square to Mars. And of course, those of you who know your astrology understand that this is called a T-square, and it's a very difficult, very challenging energy. And just after this moon, on April the 12th, when we get to the 26th, 27th, Mars is going to be opposite Pluto in Leo/Aquarius. It's not an easy time. I would say the month of April is difficult. Now, there are a good parts of the month, I will say that, but some of it's pretty gnarly. So in the nation of Israel, it is Israel's midheaven or high noon of its sky right here that gets highly impacted. And that represents its leadership. It's people got power, the people in power, the people running the country, Netanyahu, the coalition government, all of that. So there's Mars breaking, severing, ending, fracturing, cutting that part of the story. Netanyahu has his midheaven in the sign of Virgo. He's a Sag rising, and his midheaven in the sign of Virgo was pretty activated by the eclipse that we just experienced as well. There may be an eclipse of power in his role within Israel, and how he gets eclipsed could be, and just like Trump is in harm's way, an unaliving. We shall see. Mars represents things like people who unalive people. I'm trying not to get punished here on the algorithm. So keep this in mind, right? Mars is cutting and severing something to do with the leadership of the nation of Israel. And when? On April 12th? Maybe a day before, a day after, maybe 3 days after, but certainly look in the 2 to 3 weeks that follow the moon for clues as to what the story is really about. And it influences the direction of that war in the Middle East for the 6 months that follow. Finally, I'm going to show you another story. I'm going to keep layering this so you can be shocked and maybe awed and upset. I hope not. Outside wheel is the transits of the sky. That's just the moon to remind you. There is the Libra moon, right? I don't want that back. We already had that. I want to show you Iran. Recently used Iran. Come back up. This is one chart. It's a Leo rising chart. This is the commonly used Iran chart. And so one of the things you might notice here is how the animosity between Iran and Israel is dangerously precarious when it comes to mass death and Pluto nuclear stories. Okay. And why I say that is because Pluto, that belongs to Iran, right over here, and that would be the third house of Iran, which represents many things. It's media, it's news outlets, it's local environs, it's neighbors, like people near it, the neighborhood. So Pluto, Iran's Pluto on the ascendant of Israel, right? That's gnarly, connected to this lunation. But if you flip the script and see what else we have going on here between these two nations, and you wonder why everything's so difficult. For Israel, the house of open enemies, the sun of the nation, the Aries sun of the nation of Iran is sitting there. So that's a big, bright solar light in the house of somebody that is your apparently open enemy. However, I notice when the sun is in the seventh house for people, they tend to be obsessed with the other person. So there's a quality of obsession with Iran, particularly from the current government, trying to engineer a war for like the last 2 decades or 3 decades and get the United States to carry it out for them, just so you know. And that's history. Okay. That's not me making that up. And the other thing I want to talk about, because I'm going back to scary nuclear stories, this is the actual Pluto at 3 degrees during the time of this moon. And it happens to be directly opposite the moon, the Leo moon, right here, that belongs to Israel. And that's a Leo moon for Israel in the 11th house. 11th house, 9th house. Wait, let me get that right. 11th house. Netanyahu also has planets up here, in here. Where is he? Where'd he go? Because I'm losing track of who's who in the rings. That's Israel. Netanyahu's not in this chart, but he also has planets here. Now, when I actually put Netanyahu's chart over Iran's, I think I'll do that for you. You can see he has an absolute fetish or anger or wants to trounce upon Iran as if like it's his mortal enemy from childhood. It's bizarre. But this moon right here in Leo that is in the 11th house of the nation of Israel with the Mars, the god of war. 11th house can be things to do with groups of people, large groups of people, connections to people in the governing bodies, larger swaths like legislative bodies. But there's also tension here in the sky. So let me just do one more thing. Let me clear this mess, clear. And I'm going to put into the sky something that is interesting to me, and then we'll get your sign done. I hope this isn't boring. I hope you guys don't mind it. Mundane astrology as a standalone seems to tank my channel, but hopefully you'll be okay if I talk about it in the very beginning of all these videos. Okay, so recently used is Netanyahu. I had him in here, and also I want to put Iran over that. And I want you to see, well, first of all, you can see how he's like totally meant to be the champion warrior hero, I guess so, Netanyahu of the nation of Israel, because Netanyahu's Sagittarius ascendant is sitting right in here. Did I take the ascendant degree? No, there it is, 9 degrees. And Jupiter is here. So like leader, king is the energy for this combination, but wounded leader king of the nation of Israel. And of course, because he's born when Israel was founded, more or less, he's got a perfect lineup for war, right? Like this, wanting to go to war, etc. And so we're not going to look at Israel. We know that he's obviously his ascendant. Israel's ascendant is all lushed up with his south node of past lives and this new moon in Libra. So there's, and Neptune for holy wars, etc. So let's go away from that and let me just show you the story that emerges when we see Iran here, because it is going to be, in my view, a back to war with Iran story coming off this moon. Maybe because Iran says, no, there's no way you're pushing out the Palestinian people from their home territory that they've been squished into for 50 years. So we're going to fight back, and then there's going to be an escalation of conflict that could be very much like nuclear saber rattling increases when Mars is opposite Pluto on the 27th. It involves sequences of stories that began when Mars and Pluto co-joined together of nuclear saber rattling energies. You can read about that in my Pluto Chronicles between Russia and Ukraine and the West. So there can be some of that too. But if I look at the chart of Iran in this time frame, I'm more concerned about that direction. Well, everyone's looking at Russia and Ukraine, something bad like a mishap or a nuclear misadventure or whatever you want to call it, hopefully not, may occur. You can't just bomb a uranium processing site in the country of Iran. There's going to be massive contamination of the country and neighboring areas as well from the fallout from that. You just can't do that, but you never know, right? So this is Iran on the outside. This is Netanyahu, right? Let's talk about it just for a second, right? If you think about this and you're a real person and you've got, to deal with somebody you don't like, a real person you don't like, well, then this is explaining things because Iran has a Mars South node in the fourth house on the root of Netanyahu's chart. This is for a leader, it means home and homeland. And he thinks that Mars, war, South Node, I don't know, lost, surrender, past lives is a thing. Him, I got to go to battle with this energy right here. This is my job. Got to do it for some reason. And you also notice that the identity, the ascendant of the nation of Iran is on top of Pluto in Netanyahu's chart, just like Israel. Like, let's go to war. Let's blow something up. Let's detonate. And you'll notice that Iran has its Pluto on the South Node and the new moon of Netanyahu. And so there's a lot about transformation, mass death, crisis and conflict. When you see Pluto, you always think nuclear. You have to, it's a part of the story. So there is something here that I'm worried about. And that's what I'm going to end with. I don't want to overdo it here. I just want you to know that while we're all looking at Russia, Ukraine, and yes, 26th, 27th, 28th of April, may see more saber rattling going on. Nuclear saber rattling is the word I was using in my article. Between Ukraine and Russia and the West, especially Germany now rearming for some reason. However, France, a nuclear power. However, I still have my most uneasy feeling about what's going on in the Middle East, because although there was an eclipse in Aries on the 30th at 9 degrees of Aries, which should be the final eclipse in that war, and it can take up to a year to fulfill, I still think there's a lot of problems ahead in that part of the world. And yeah, there you go. Let's do your sign. It's a lot more cheerful. I'm going to talk about what you need to end, sever, cut, like what you need to release, something, Martian wants to sort of cut out, big change, maybe coming through a bit of a crucible, especially for you cardinal signs of Libra, Aries, Capricorn, and Cancer, less difficult for other signs, and how this is a very rare kind of defining moon because it connects us to eclipses throughout 23 and 24 in the Libra Aries axis. And it also connects us to a time in our lives that some of us are old enough to go back to like 1977 fall through to April of 78. It's similar energies replaying. So let's get started and start with, of course, the Aries people. All right, let's start with Aries. Where'd you go? Aries, let's get away from all those people that we don't care about. They're not your story. Let's do this, Aries. So come on, Aries. I'm a sun and moon like you. Let's relate. It looks to me like the sky is really opening up, a big energy of, change. We don't need the midheaven in there because it's not important. We can leave the nodes though. Anyway, big change energy is going to happen for you regarding your home. Now, it doesn't have to be that you're moving, but this moon is indicating with a square to Mars that there's something about shifting your relationship to your home. It could be that there's going to be someone leaving your home, moving out of your home. You're going to adjust your home, construct your home, add to your home, change your home, something like that. And from the Libra moon in the 7th house, right, coming through a part of the sky where it's about one-on-one relationship. Some of these moves of home are connected to a significant person in your life. And well, you may, have a spouse or a husband. If you're not just dating someone, maybe you'll move in together. But watch out for the emotion here. Watch out for the intensity. Mars is in a condition of unpredictable overreaction, harsh and brash energy, and being highly defensive. And there may be some kind of combination of a chironic wound about yourself, not feeling good about who you are, not really understanding your who you want to be, what your unique gifts are in this world, your real purpose. So, kind of an existential wound for a lot of you. And this, you've been dealing with this wound since 2013 as an Aries sun, moon, and rising. Sun is your career, moon is your how you feel about your life, rising is anything about you, including your body. So having this existential chironic wound, and then it's trying to heal, and the moon reflecting the wound, that you experience in the audience, the marketplace, the business partners, and your significant other if you have one. And so there can be a very deep intensity, profound intensity here, with Mars coming into that T-square to the moon and to the sun. You might find yourself really feeling as if you have, to make a radical decision or a bold, aggressive change regarding that relationship or those relationships and things to do with where you live. Now, at a more spiritual level, I'm going to get rid of the clutter, okay, because it's driving me nuts. Well, maybe I'll leave it. You'll see there's too many wedges in here. I know I can't do everything, but I'll talk a bit about it too. You'll notice that the moon also wants it to say what can be fulfilled in your relationship that is pending, like what has to become either complete or full or fulfilled. And the reason is, of course, because of the eclipses we've been going through, including the new moon eclipses starting back in April the new moon eclipse starting back in 2023, and an eclipse in Aries in the spring, April of 23, an eclipse in Libra in the fall, October of 23. It takes you back to a story that's that old about your home, about where you live. So I'll use me as an example. In literally like April of 23, just a couple months before that, I moved into this home that you see here, right? And then now I'm moving back out. Right. So Lori, Mars is moving. It's also connected to the Aries eclipse, but it's also connected on my moon, but it's also connected to Mars here. So I have to change my home and I don't know where I'm going to go yet. Right. So I've got about 3 or 4 months to figure it out. And in that regard, it's a perfect example of, where I'm going to be in this intensity. And I don't know exactly if this square to the 7th house indicates, my man lives in the United States and I cannot legally stay there more than 6 months, so there's all this intensity and tension about what to do in this kind of situation. So keep that in mind. You'll notice that Mars, though, as he is squaring the moon, which is difficult, is also in a beautiful flow to the node of fate, Saturn and Venus. And this is opening up a doorway or a corridor of something positive trying to happen. And with you, it's getting rid of health problems that you can dispense with, cut out, sever, and end for good, as well as addiction, self-undoing, bad habits and patterns, slice, cut, and gone. Just not even like the wine lover's middle way, like the teetotalers, full on, and the wine lover is not even there. That kind of beautiful breakthrough with this energy could happen for you. And with Mars also kind of just simply saying, as he flows to the south node, some of these changes of home may be connected to living in a foreign country, also in terms of where you live, in terms of, do you buy or rent? It may be a destined rental opportunity in a distant shore. Distant shore can be anywhere that's far from where you currently live, one side of the country to the next, or even to another country altogether. Finally, note this: the Mercury is going to be talking to Mars. And there's a feeling, therefore, there's some news or information that might want to come through for you around the 12th. You may be within a few days after, because some kind of like phone call, text message, email, or with Mercury in the 12th house, powerful dream. And you'll notice that Uranus gets all in the mix as well. Sudden, surprising, and positive developments may come around your money, but it's not from this moon. That's a whole other story. And on the week of April 12th, I'll be bringing this other story in. In fact, it might be good to get rid of Uranus so you're not distracted, because Uranus isn't really the biggest story here. It's sort of a little bit of this Mars sextile, but we'll see. If I had any advice for you how not to get run down and run over by your own intensity. Clear your family of origin, family system stuff. If you got ancestral line curses, if you think about your childhood and you realize that maybe I was taught something that I shouldn't believe. I'll give you me as an example. My dad worked his ass off, had a pharmacy, had his own business. Well, what was the problem with that? No vacations, no family time, no assistant a pharmacist. He couldn't get one in my hometown. I have my own business. I have no assistant. I don't have, other than my sister, time stamping, and I'm losing the work-life balance, right? Libra balance. So I can look at my father and the way he was literally a workaholic or overly driven or could not get away from the work he had created, the business in the store he had created, that and his employees loved him. But I can see that I can say, oh my God, I've got this ancestral pattern. And it's a detriment to my health, to my enjoyment of my family, and to my life in general. And my dad would drink beer to get away from the stress at night. And I drink wine sometimes. Well, probably daily if I could, but I try not to. So, that I can see is me cracking through an old pattern from my family system. So other Aries listening, especially Aries sun and rising, do you have any of these patterns? Okay, look for where your family system and fracturing, breaking, and cutting out of that pattern can support better health for you, better work, better home, a better spiritual life, everything better in balance. Okay, we're moving to the next sign. I forgot that I pinned this damn thing to Aries 0 point. Give me a minute. I'm going to unpin it, but then I'll be somewhere else in the sky. I know I will be. Whole sign houses. I wonder where I'll land. So we're getting away from Virgo, my daughter, Virgo rising, my best friend, one of my best friends. Okay. I have more than one best friend. Okay, so here we are. If you're a Taurus and you're listening to this, a very interesting lunation, and I hope you're going to get something positive from it. I want you to know that there is a moon that's full in the 6th house of work. It's taking you back to eclipses that began in April of 23 and fall of 23 and continued throughout 24, where you've been making major letting go, releasing and surrendering work, debts, and maybe struggling with debts as well, as you have spiritual lessons connected to indebtedness, whether that's a loan, a mortgage, a electrical bill, or whatever, but also your karmic debts. And so letting go of your health challenges, especially addictions, especially with Chiron there. A lot of people I know who are Taurus have quit drinking, quit smoking. I have clients, I have friends, I have family. It's a thing. And so the Chironic wound around self-undoing and addictions, around debts and health, regarding karmic debts, around work as well, challenges with work, letting go of a line of work, or having some destined fated things occur regarding the word work and workplace and employment. All these things have been going on. Now, this is not an eclipse, but this is a moon that picks up energy from all of that South Node Libra eclipse stuff. It's kind of like the grand finale in a way. And so this moon happens to square Mars, and that's going to bring tension. You're going to find some kind of tension between your local neighborhood, your neighbors, your friends in your neighborhood, and things to do with work. Or this could be like commuting problems. Now, this is where be careful for car accidents. I'm just going to tell you. The moon, Mars in the house of neighborhood, squaring the moon on an axis of karmic stories. I don't want you to think that everyone here who's a Taurus will have an incident with a moving vehicle. Well, be careful when really around the moon, right? Be careful on the full crazy moon energy that the werewolves are howling. Don't do anything reckless in your local environment that could injure your body or injure your health. That doesn't just always have to be about vehicles. This also could be about overindulging in the bar or the pub, and then you're really sick afterwards. Just be careful. I know a lot of you are clearing out your stuff, but I'm just saying that's Mars is still a malefic, right? Mars wants to make changes of direction, wants to have actions and decisions that you need to make regarding your 3rd house reality. Is it time to move your neighborhood? Do you want a new rental property that you're not sure about the one you have? Do you think it's time to move out from a particular situation that connects to your social media land, marketing and selling, the online world? And if you work in a local establishment, like you have to get in a car or take the train or bus or subway to your work, that's Mars commuting in the 3rd house. And there may be a change here, a change of job and a change of the strategies of how you get to work, something going to shift on that regard in the months that follow the moon. Now, the moon is also healing that chironic wound around your addiction, self-undoing, bad habits, but mostly also things that are deep soul work are activated on the axis of 12 and 6. And it's a really good kind of a cut through, sever, end, and sharp sword any kind of ancestral storylines that don't serve you. The sun is the ruler of your fourth house of family of origin, and there's a way you can cut through the dross, just like I talked about for the Aries, but for different reasons, and get rid of those childhood traumas or childhood situations that wounded you by dealing with them consciously, doing some kind of investigation, maybe therapy, to understand why you are sometimes self-sabotaging based on things that happened to you when you were a child. Sometimes trauma feels familiar and we recreate trauma, right? Because it's what we knew as a child. And so if you're tired of living a breathless thriller of trauma in your life, then this is going to clear that and help you heal it. Don't forget, it's as rare as 1977, 78. So this is not an everyday Mars story. What I kind of would also like for you is the energy of this beautiful Uranian signature right here. Now, just before the moon, right? The moon's actually going to be 23 degrees, but still on April the 12th, there is a nice little flow between the moon and Jupiter, and that could open up some kind of positive developments regarding prosperity and work. So keep that in mind. But the moon itself, when it gets to the 23rd degree, is really leaving Jupiter behind. But the moon is also talking to Uranus, and Uranus is in the sign of you, and that creates a moon-Uranus talking point. You might have a very not Uranus and moon. What am I talking about? Sorry about that. South node and the South node and Uranus and the stellium up here. So I want to say that you might have a breakthrough here, a very profound breakthrough coming around the time of this lunation. And it could be a breakthrough that's about the actualization of long-range goals, dreams, and hopes. And it may just come out of the blue, like a little pennies from heaven or windfall vibe, just something coming. Oh my God, my desires, my dreams, Venus and North Node and Mercury, and news and information that shows you that what you want is coming. It could even be a career gain, like a surprising uplift in your financial status because of your career, work, employment stories. Mars himself, the gnarly guy down there, he's also in a gentle flow to the house of children, the house of romantic love. And this could be a really lovely time for a leisure trip, a getaway, traveling anywhere with your significant other, including far off foreign shores on April 12th, add a month after. And that could be very healing and very solidifying for the goodwill, the friendship, and the harmony between you and another in a significant love relationship. Mars rules your seventh house and he exalts at ninth house of foreign travel, but even a getaway is good for you. So think about this moon as also maybe opening a door, because as Mars is also squaring the moon, he's talking to Saturn, Venus, North Node, Rahu is about foreign places. Any journey you would take, distant, far off, or local, it doesn't matter. Any trips you take with a significant partner, if you have one, may look very good on you. And if you don't have somebody and you're looking for somebody, in the month after this April 12th moon, this could bring you through travel and adventure a new relationship. Hey, Gemini. So you could say that you're lucky, oh so lucky. Jupiter's in your sign and it protects your health, protects your body, protects your goals and stuff. Like if it's your sun, protects your career. Your moon, it can protect your body and mood, and because the body can sometimes connect to lunar elements, but it's usually how you feel about stuff and your home life. But if you're Gemini rising, it's anything about you is very well protected by the guardian planet himself, now the great protector of Jupiter. But he does give you what you need, not what you always want. So keep that in mind. As we look at this moon that will be full on April 12th in the sign of Libra, it's going to activate your 11th house chironic wound, a wound around belonging to social groups of friends, etc. Ironically, I have a progressed sun in Gemini, and I'm going to be spending some time with some women up in a mountain area around Vancouver around the time of this moon or just before. And it could indicate situations of healing my autistic spectrum disorder, absolute distaste for small talk. But you know what I'm saying, or not feeling like I fit in. But the chironic wound for a lot of you Geminis, that you don't fit in. You've been feeling that since 2013. You don't belong, or your goals and dreams aren't being realized. You're feeling wounded around the actualization of them, or a wound with a sibling, one older than you. And so this chironic wound wants to be reflected by a lunation in the fifth house of joy, fun, play, pleasure, leisure, travel, enjoyment of life, creativity, art. Now, for you, it could literally be the kind of moon that's going to wake up some kind of romantic story. If you're a single Gemini, Jupiter's witnessing your house of committed love that belongs to him, and the moon is big and full in the fifth house. Go back and look at, starting in April of 23, but particularly the South Node eclipses that began to happen in October of 23, right? And then in October of 24, etc. And even in spring of 24, lunar eclipse. And those eclipses have been showing you the nature of love from a spiritual perspective. You've been learning about unconditional love of another in romantic ways or in parental ways, just understanding that Rahu, the Ketu story there would be a very deeper look at the way love and love stories should look. Or a destined soulmate love relationship may have come through your sky starting in the spring of 23. Now that story's done. Those South Node energies have left, but we still have a moon right here where all those eclipses were waking things up. And so there may be a echo of some sort in the area of romantic love and committed love as well, or regarding a need to detach from your children. Certainly the South Node is, can you detach in a healthy way from your children? Or can they detach from you in a healthy way? And so maybe this is also one more layer of sort of removing yourself from overbearing, overfunctioning with one of your or all of your kids, no matter what the age is, right? Stay in your lane, or what is the expression? You're responsible for 100% of your 50% of any relationship, and that may include children. They are people after all. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention, Mars is saying cut, end, and sever something to do with your dietary habits or your work situation in terms of earnings. You're either going to cut something to do with the way you make money because you want to experience a fulfillment of joy, fun, play, creativity, and pleasure, or you're going to cut something out from your dietary style. And Mars here is very much ready to slice and cut in almost an over exuberant way. If you think you can't eat like meat, maybe just keep eggs in there, but there's something you want to change in dietary habits as well. And if you need any kind of facial surgery, Mars is in the part of the chart like dental work and stuff, but he is in his fall, and I wouldn't recommend it I wouldn't do surgery with Mars fallen in Cancer, but you may have to anyway. That's his fall. Oh my God, I've got a cavity. Oh my God, I need a stitch here or something. That would be true for the moon at about the 12th of the month, around there, at about a month for that acute story to play out. All said and done, though, over 6 months, you're changing the way you make money. That's so you can find a fulfillment of joy, fun, play, pleasure, and creativity in your work and life. I do enjoy the fact that as Mars is cutting and severing things to do with your work, and a dietary style, he's also flowing beautifully. Oh, by the way, falling out with a child over money, conflict with a child over money, conflict with a lover over money. These are stories that may come through the sky also in the month after this moon. But I do like that Mars is flowing beautifully to the 10th house, South Node, Mars, change of home. And Mars rules rentals in your chart, maybe a rental home. A lot of you are going to move, change your home over the next 6 months, at least after this moon. And yeah, you got support from Mars to move and also be exalted with Venus and Saturn at the top of the sky. So moves serve a greater success in your career. So not to worry about it. Like any move, which it seems like you're going to do anyway with the new eclipse cycle. But this is in the next 6 months. Any move of home or change in your home will positively impact your finances. That's what I'm getting with the fall of Mars, indicates more expenditures and spending. So even while you may have to spend more money for another home, you're also going to likely find it's going to serve you to be in your success in your career in an unexpectedly positive way. For example, you have a 1-bedroom, but now you're going to get a 2-bedroom, and you can make a dedicated office space. It costs more money, but it's going to be worth the money because your career will expand and succeed and exalt because of it. And you'll notice that the energy of Uranus is sextiling the South Node and North Node axis. So sudden surprising jolts of success financially connected to your career, and often connected to far off foreign shores and lands, or digital income and borderless revenue. And normally I could say an unexpectedly large expenditure or cost with Uranus here. However, I don't think it's really about that because of the sextile to Venus. One thing I could say, if you want to make an investment in the stock markets in the next 6 months, you could strike it big. Saturn, the Lord of the 8th, and Uranus in the 12th, the expenditure the money you have to give to get the payoff. You might just be able to pick one or two stocks, maybe after a downdraft, go fishing like a scavenger and get a real deal. And you might make some significant stock market investment money in the 6 months that follows this moon. Hey, Cancer, Sun, Moon, and Rising. You're one of those angular signs that really gets clobbered by this moon. It is a full moon in your fourth house of home, property, land, real estate, the people that you live with. Who are you with? Who are the folks there, in the domestic private life? Because this moon is saying there is going to be a completion, fulfillment. There has been South Node eclipses as 23, asking if you want to let go of your home, surrender your home, move your home, or change your home. Some of you may have already done that, but if you haven't, there's still a story going on here. And in the 6 months that follows, you may make an executive decision. Mars is in your sign. That's rash, brash, bold, and daring to move your home, but you also want to do it because you, as a Cancer who love their home, you're ruled by the moon, you're looking for a home that gives you the balance and the equilibrium you really want. And Mars has got the kind of almost like fierce mother bear protector urge to find a better home for some reason. And I'm not sure, but because Mars rules your children, you may also find a home that's better for your children, better school nearby, more room, a big backyard. You might be fiercely desiring to change the home connected to children. Like if you denest a child and it's too big, it's also about changing your domicile, maybe in the next 6 months connected to children, your fifth house. I want to also mention that there's a chironic wound in the 10th house of career. A lot of you have had a feeling that you're not in the right purpose career, like dissatisfaction with job since 2019. And literally trying to find a purpose, a meaning, a kind of unique way the key to purpose can be unlocked in your career, and you can use your talents and gifts. That old thing, are you in the zone of mediocrity, excellence, or genius? And you're actually looking for genius. And excellence. So it's not enough. You want to go all the way to the thing you're here to do. And this is the chironic wound that's been you've been questioning it since 2019, many of you. Now, and this is going to reflect the wound in the fourth house. And therefore, some of you may experience this as your childhood and the way you grew up and the mother relationship has literally wounded you so that you've been unable to actualize the career that you're really wanting to have or the purpose that you really want. You're retired. Well, then what is the purpose that you really want to have in retirement? What is it you want to be doing that feels on target for you? And so this energy is critically very clearing of the past, particularly of the childhood ball and chain that you may not have been aware of that's been holding you back. And the relationship with your real life mother, moon in the fourth house of the mother, if she's alive, is being activated here. Now, Mars is squaring the moon. And if your mother is a toxic force in your life, so we sometimes have bad moms, or bad parents, you don't have to stick with it. You might divorce them. You know what I mean? So there's something about that too. You might make a fracture. Having Mars trining the North Node and Venus, you're trying to move to Dharma, purpose, alignment. And 6 months that follows this, some of you may go back to or go to college or university to align with purpose, or go back again, or study with a teacher mentor in some tradition that's exalted and you're really interested in. Mercury is study, and the North Node is destined, and Saturn is tradition, and Venus is exalted. So it's really a good path to go into learning something over the next 6 months after this moon. And you may get wind of what to learn in the first month after. It's also good for foreign travel and foreign shore journeys and adventures, especially when if any travel involves siblings, younger and older. This is very positive. An older sibling, an ally, a benefactor, a friend could ka-ching, suddenly reward you with some success financially. That's Uranus in your 11th house. Or you'll have some unexpected positive developments from people who are allies and benefactors. This is 11th house, the sibling one older than you, and there's very positive flow between surprises from that sibling to you as you are dog paddling heavily, trying to make decisions and actions that are right for you. Don't forget, Mars moves on April 18th out of your first house. So it might be very true that the 12th to the 18th, there's major decisions being made and actions are being taken in your life coming off of this moon about the themes I've already outlined, including your home. Looks like you might want to change your neighborhood with the South Node here, or move domestically rather than internationally. And last thing I want to mention is given that there's a kind of general vibe of Jupiter supporting the moon in the fourth house, I'd say it's an air trine. I'd say that you could be very, very much looking at some deep soul work going on about your ancestral line, not just your mom. But also, again, Jupiter in the 11th says learning or studying from home will benefit you greatly over the 6 months that follow the moon. And that would be about professional achievement, not just taking a knitting class, unless you want to be a professional knitter. All right, so we're going to continue on with Leo. I'm going slow today. Leo, sun, moon, and rising. This is a complicated moon. It's coming off of the all the eclipses of April, starting in April of 23. And then all the eclipses in Libra since then. Now, there's no more eclipses in Libra South Node. Nope. But there is a moon that goes right back to October of 2023. It's in the same spot where the first Libra eclipse happened. What are you letting go of, surrendering, and releasing to do with the third house? It could be about a younger sibling, a relationship, and to let something go. There's also a light of reflecting a woundedness. The moon reflects the woundedness of the ninth house, which is to be aligned with your dharma, to find your purpose, to be having a meaningful life. And the moon is reflecting that wound that you may have noticed yourself feeling a bit ever since 2013, or if you have a wounded relationship with a father or father figure, that also is being brought to light for you. Moon in the third could be home connected to neighborhood, and you might want to make Mars squaring it a change of home, but to another neighborhood in the local area or town you live in or city. And so for some of you, there may be a move. Mars rules your fourth house of domicile. Because Mars is going to change or push for some relocation for some of you Leos, it's coming from the 12th house, which is to say it's coming from where you have traditionally been your own worst enemy, particularly maybe self-undoing, self-sabotage, but also maybe just not being able to see the deeper spiritual and psychological roots of challenges you've had in life, particularly when it comes to father figures. Now, one thing I'd say about Mars and mother figures, and so both. Now, so childhood stories here. One thing I want to tell you, I mean, Jupiter does flow to the moon. So a sibling, one older, an ally, a benefactor, friends in high places are so supportive of you in the days after this moon and up to 6 months after. There's something about people in high places got your back. If you're going to move, it may connect to a friendship, a sibling, or a career gain that allows for the finances to do so. Elder sibling in particular, benefiting you like a fairy godfather, mother. That's really lovely. You could notice there's a stellium in your 8th house coming during this lunation. That stellium is about your chunky money, taxes, resources with a spouse, investments, retirement plan investments, all of that stuff. Now, it's a positive stellium. Venus is exalted here. She's with the North Node and Saturn. Now, Saturn North Node can be malefic, but not with an exalted Venus. In my view, this is going to be better than average experience of increase of financial gain coming off the 6 months that follow the moon. But because basically 8th house gains can also come from sale of property, and Mars is squaring the moon and trining the stellium. It looks like some of you might sell a property as a result of this story, and that would allow for greater financial gain. And there's an off chance some of you might rent out a property and get gains as a landlord in the 6 months that follow. Finally, what are those surprises going on in the 10th house with Uranus, shock and awe, but also on a well star, Algol can bring wealth, but decapitation. If you lose your job, South Node in the 2nd house, decapitating sudden surprises, it's positive. It's a trine. Losing your job brings good things. Don't worry about it. You have Jupiter in the 11th giving protection. So it could be some of you suddenly are disconnecting, unplugging, and you may be shocked or surprised that you're doing it. You may choose it or it may choose you, but you may walk away from a livelihood, earnings, job situation, or as I said, it may be pulled out from underneath you. But if it happens to occur in the month after or up to 6 months after this moon, it is for your highest good. All right, Virgo, sun, moon, and rising sign. First things first, what we got to go on to talk about is that there is a really interesting cycle of eclipses that are behind you now through Aries and Libra. And this moon is on the even on the actual degree of the October 14th eclipse of 23. The more important part of this moon is it's reminding you of a story that has completed but may have a lingering aftermath of releasing, surrendering, and letting go. South Node, of matters to do with second house. Now, that can be food style, that can be dietary habits, that could be things to do with what you ingest or put through your nose or mouth, right? Any of those will do. With Chiron, the wounded one, reflected by this moon, we're looking at ancestral, karmic, and family patterns regarding even possibly substance use disorders, etc., addictions, and all of that, and busting out and breaking free, especially with Neptune in the eighth house, reminding us of the word addictions and drugs and escapist tools. And so this is a moon that can completely relieve you of any kind of bad addictive habit. And you might have noticed you were kind of working on it, 2023, 24, or pondering it. And this could be the nail in the coffin where you just are okay, you're done. Sun rules the house of self-undoing and the house of karmic stories connected to the family. Now, the Mars position squaring the moon from the 11th house could bring you into a big falling out with some situation to do with a friend, an ally, a group of belonging, potentially an elder sibling, over money. But you could also end up cutting away from a group of friends by choice because you realize, for example, all they do is, lie around watching Netflix, smoking weed, and that's not your cup of tea, So you make a change. You want to be with a different crew. And so there's like kind of an exit strategy from debilitating friendships that undo you if there's any kind of substance use involved in those groups of belonging. And lastly, Jupiter's protecting you, but he gives you what you need, not what you want. And with Mars here, you could leave a job or a job could end. You could be terminated. If that happens, it's for your highest and best good. It's going to bring you better things to leave than to stay. And I know that to be true because Jupiter is trining the moon, indicating an increase of revenue or wealth or earnings or money coming your way in the wake of this moon over the 6 months that follows. And Uranus, shock and awe in the ninth house to the nodes of fate. Sudden surprising developments in a long-term committed love relationship or business partnership. Also regarding matters to do with distant shores and foreign lands, and maybe even to do with weddings and wedding proposals and marriage proposals. Mercury sextiling Uranus in the house of churches and places where you'd have a ceremonial united wedding kind of vibe. So there's something surprising going on also in the life of your partner. If you have a marriage type partner, then this may be their story. And they're going to tell you, oh my God, I got a job offer in another country or something like that. Or they're going to school and they got accepted at their favorite school, and it's a positive surprise. But it is collaterally connected to the moon. Okay, so it is something you might see happening in the month that follows this moon. So stay tuned. Let me know what happens. It's kind of a weird setup, but I think that's what I'm seeing here. Libra, sun, moon, and rising. Well, the first thing you've got going is a moon in your sign. Oh, you're one of those angular signs. You're really feeling it. It's a big full light on you. All eyes on you, all eyes on you, and it kind of suggests that you're really seeing yourself. There's revelations under the light of a full moon, and you're having personal revelations, and you're understanding and completing things within yourself. You've been doing that since all the way back to 2023, with a full moon eclipse here, a new moon eclipse here. October 14th of 23. And there's been surrender, release, and letting go of habits and patterns and ways of being that don't serve you. You've been under spiritual work, maybe even had to let go of identity, ways of being that you thought were true, and now you realize you've outgrown them. So that's been going on. Now, there's no south node here anymore. It's moved into your 12th house. But you'll also notice that the full moon is reflecting a chironic wound in the house of business partners, audience, marketplace, and long term committed marriage type partnerships. Now, you may have a wound about marriage and relationship and business partners where you just keep saying, I can't find anybody, or I'm single forever, or I picked the wrong people. Or your partner may have a wound and literally a problem in their life. And you're like, able to have revelations and insights coming off of this moon on how to support your partner. Otherwise, you with Neptune over there, especially if your partner has addictive problems, because Neptune is their escapism. So now this moon is helping you see more clearly. However, it's also that relationship that you have to your audience, your public, your marketplace for your career, or a business partnership of some sort. And some of you may have been reflecting on those types of people in situations since 2023 fall, or even as early as April of 20, the Aries eclipse in your seventh house in April of 23. So there's a lot to say about rounding up, finishing the grand finale. It's kind of like finishing touches. You're polishing things from these eclipses to give yourself the final answer. But Mars is squaring in the 10th house, and that's a good chance that some of you are getting ready to quit a job, leave a job, finish up a job or work situation. You may have a fracture or a cut or a break with a father figure or someone in authority with whom you have a wounded relationship, and you may just cut it off. Now, this is going to be anytime in the month after the moon and up to 6 months later. I kind of would like you to think about also, given that this moon is in a flow to Jupiter, are you thinking that you might want to go back to school, publish a book, join a religious faith or community, find a guru? These are things that open up for you as well. Go on a pilgrimage, and moon is like, okay, fulfill that, reveal where you wish to go. What is it for? Is it another educational opportunity as well? Could you be going to school here in the months that follow, with Jupiter flowing to the moon from houses 9 to 1, which is also about dharma and purpose. You got a big dharma line up here, Pluto in your 5th house and Jupiter in your 9th. So you're really trying to be aligned with purpose. And if it means quitting a kind of the day job or quitting a career path altogether, that looks really positive. For by quitting, you activate a stellium of goodness in your 6th house of work and livelihood. And that's great energy, even if Mars is in instability. So even if you fly off the handle and quit, or your boss flies off the handle and quits you, or something like that, or you just quit your whole career path, all the let the chips fall where they may. Well, they're going to fall into good places for you to exalt your work, livelihood, service, and the work you do in the world. Because the downside of Mars up here for 4 months, and reminded you in the beginning, this is like 77 to 78, September to April, is workaholism. You might have been pushing yourself to the limit with no break, and just intensely working or overworking. And this is like literally the crash and burn lunation for some of you who have been pushing yourself, dog paddling at high speed, and feeling like you're like exhausted up there in that career space. Otherwise, you're having conflicts in the career space with the boss or colleagues, coworkers, and that's enough to get you out of there as well. Uranus gives you surprises financially, connected to fated circumstances, connected to debts, unexpected opportunity to relieve yourself of a debt, unexpected increase in a debt. It could be going both ways. If it's an increase in a debt, it might be because of a purchase of a property. But if it's unexpectedly, you realize you want to buy something, you need to take on a mortgage. But on the other hand, if you eliminate the debt, because Venus is exalted here, then you might find yourself doing that because you unexpectedly decide to sell a property, or when you do sell a property, because Saturn is the lord of your 4th house, you get way more money than you were hoping for. So it's exciting, exhilarating financial matters as well, co-attendant to this moon, and likely to play out somehow more in the month or two that follows this moon. Whereas the moon itself is up to 6 months later for sure. Well, Scorpio, we have a moon in your 12th house. It's going to remind you of living through the eclipses that have been going on since April of 23. As South Node eclipses happen in your 12th and North Node eclipses happen in your 6, some of you have been feeling a chironic wound regarding work and a deep desire to let go of ancestral patterns and habits and ancestral addictions and self-undoing that you know that you kind of took on, maybe likely from, growing up in your own childhood. We have Pluto, the trauma god there, and recognizing some childhood traumas that may have led you to seek escapism in unhealthy ways. So you've probably been noticing that you've been working on that over the last couple of years. And now this is the final nail in that coffin for success. Mars cuts, ends, and severs things, especially from the top of the sky in the temple of the moon. This is also cutting, ending, and severing any kinds of wounds you have connected to father and father figures that allow for you to be more solidly engaged in a life of working on purpose. I mean, finding meaningful work and purpose is a chironic wound since 2013. You may be getting a lot of money, but you may feel this is not your real gig. And so now you're looking at trying to collapse that chironic wound by 2017. It will be gone. Now, cutting, ending, and severing by letting go of something, it is likely that you could also consider letting go of a job. He's about to cross into the 10th house, or maybe something coming off of this moon that paves the way, let's say about up to 3 months after the moon, for you to have an exit strategy in a particularly unsatisfying career. That's a possibility. The moon is a ruler of the father figure 9th house in Vedic astrology. That's fathers, and in the house of hospitals, opposite Chiron in the house of sickness. Some of you may experience a father figure in a chironic illness situation in a hospital with Jupiter in the 8th house of chunky money. That can also indicate, with Pluto in the 4th house, and I say this every time, that you're going to get an inheritance from a father figure. That's just a possibility, not a probability. This is not your chart. I also would note that you have this energy of a beautiful creative stellium. This is good for making babies. If the next 6 months you want to get a baby in the hopper, you're female or you're male, it doesn't matter. The person you're with, and you can make a baby here. You can also make a baby book, a baby business, a baby entrepreneurial endeavor, an entrepreneurial creative, vibe. What do you want to give birth to here? What do you want to conceive? It's exciting. It really is. So you're going to create something new. And the way this stellium interacts with Mars is positive, even though Mars is in detriment. It's like create something new that can be fulfilling and aligning with your purpose, or create something new that could allow you to have international success, or create something new in a muse-inspired way, including entrepreneurial businesses that allows for you to travel the world. This is also slightly capable of producing grandchildren. For those of you who have adult children, look for news of a grandchild coming in the 6 months that follows. Now, Uranus is talking to Mars, and the two of them have a little tete-a-tete going here, and it's speaking to a kind of vibration of what are they going to, what's a sudden shocking surprise that your husband or wife or significant other or whatever is suddenly delivering, or your marketplace, like a public viral hit with international success. It's something that could happen. Or your partner says, hey, honey, I'm pregnant. And you're surprised because you weren't planning on it. It's very possible. I like the nose of fate very much, amplifying the 5th house of good fortune. And you can make a statement here that your fortunes will increase over the next year and a half. And this is the beginning of feeling that to be true. Both financial fortune, just plain old good luck. And with Jupiter flowing to the moon again, this is again, are you about to receive a chunk of money, like an inheritance? It could just be a chunk of money from a mom, a lunar figure. And it doesn't have to involve inheritances, but it can also be from a father figure. So chunks of money coming to you, indicated as a potential way this lunation shows you its true self in the 6 months that follow. Look for evidence of that in the 1 month that follows as well. Hey, Sagittarius, I need more water. My throat is getting dry. Sun, moon, and rising. Let's talk about this energy of the north node, of the moon in Libra, where we had south node eclipses, kind of 2023 and 24, with the first eclipse there in October of 23. This is an eclipse cycle that was asking you to let go, release, and surrender attachment to friendship circles and groups of belonging. Some of you may have let go of certain friends Some of you may have moved away from friends, but there's been a distancing from social groups and friendships that used to sustain you as old friends go, and maybe some new soulmate destined alliances and friends come in, letting go of money from earnings and resources, like from your career, surrendering that as well. Less attention on that kind of earnings and career gains, more focus on what brings you joy and creativity, fun and play and pleasure. Maybe some of you hooked up with destined romantic partners 2023-24. Maybe some of you re-inspired yourself with a muse, innocence, joy, and wonder came back to your life. That would have been a way to try to work it in that last 23-24 cycle. This moon is a closing note on that story. And it's also involving a square from Mars. Now, Mars is in your 8th house, and Mars is all about cutting and ending and severing. And the 8th house is the house of money that you don't own. It's like you'd share a property with someone. Mars is trining the 4th house. So there could be some changes you're making regarding shared resources like a property and financial matters connected to it. This could be stock investments. This can be taxes and stuff like that. The square to the moon is interesting because technically this could indicate that there's some kind of breaking away from money coming from the home or homeland. Yet at the same time, it's positive. And you're reflecting that chironic wound that you weren't having any fun. You were trying your best to increase your fun, joy, play, pleasure, romance, joie de vivre, creativity, and all of that. You were trying to do that during that 23-24, but Chiron was there. So it was very difficult, that wounded spot. And so Mars wants to do what it takes to bring it back. So liberating money, like selling stock, selling property, giving yourself the cash you need, or changing your home in such a way that it gives you more freedom to enjoy your life. These are things that may occur. Mars is moving into the nomad travel, 9th house. And some of you may decide you're going to cut away, like sell a home, right? And going to travel. And it was a chironic wound that you couldn't go anywhere because your children, right? In the house of children. And now you say, what the hell? They're all adults, or they moved out, they're in university, or, I got to live my life. And so there's a lot of a kind of action towards travel, freedom, maybe pursuing education, pilgrimages. This is waking up big time for you, especially after April 18th. But the moon is telling us that stuff is already here, percolating. The moksha liberation of the 8th house, 4th house, right? You may be cutting and severing and cutting from literally your family of origin, your childhood stuff, the mother, that kind of stuff, the father, moving away from them if you're young enough, realizing you have to find your own life. That kind of thing could go on. It's very luscious and very beautiful. Surprising developments in your 6th house. All of a sudden, you're going to get a pet. All of a sudden, you're going to get a new job. Close to home, all of a sudden you're going to receive a breakthrough in your debts, and you can pay down or pay off a debt. Mars likes to cut and end and eliminate debts, credit card debts, bank debts, loans, mortgages. There's a kind of a shocking, sudden ending of debts here, or change in your debt status over the course of the months that follow the moon. Jupiter in the 7th house of significant other people in your life, especially significant love relationships. If you're single, you can get one off of the sky. You really can. Jupiter over here can also end relationships that aren't good, and may have already done so. He's been here since last May. So don't just know that he's like, I don't know. And he's checking the engine block. If there's a crack, he's going to tell you the car is no good. The marriage has been checked out. If you survived, great. If you didn't, it's a done deal. But he still could end it between now and June 9th. But that said, Jupiter is looking beautifully, positively towards that moon, that full moon that's happening in your 11th house. He gives you some loving gaze. And so things can work out also very well regarding property, land, and real estate, buying and selling, and legal contracts. And also great gains in your career can happen under this influence. If you're getting money from a rich person, or a client who's really wealthy. And if that's going to happen, look for evidence of that, likely within the first month after the moon. And with Neptune in the 5th house at last, you can, and especially when Saturn gets here in like the summer, you can definitely begin to look at creative projects, entrepreneurial projects, and artistic projects as a viable path in life if somehow you've been feeling stuck around that part of your story. Find the inner performer, the actor, the artist, the singer, the writer, or the entrepreneur in you. And that's kind of what the sky might give you a chance to do here. And you'll have gains from that. Trust me. Okay. Ooh, score up Capricorn, sun, moon, and rising. I think I need some more food or something. I'm fasting today. I think I food poisoned myself with a takeout salmon dip. All right, April 12th, not the 13th. We're losing the sky. So I'm going to just tell you, it's really happening on April 12th. There's a full moon in the 10th house of career, and this is about your visible reputation and social standing. Now, you've had a South Node transit through here for, 2023-24. This has been about surrender, release, and let go of your status, your stature, your social standing, your reputation, and certainly your career success. It's the opposite of career success. A lot of people retire, leave a job, don't find one, like have to surrender, all about surrender. At the same time, and the North Node was moving through your fourth house, giving you an amplification, perhaps, of the chironic wound of home and where you belong, and indicating maybe homes in foreign countries and some changes of where you live, 23, 24. But now the moon is like a full light of revelation and completion, the end of that sort of challenging energy in your career house or with a father figure in your life. And this moon then is also squaring Mars, and Mars is in the house of marriage and significant love relationship partners. The square is usually about separation, endings, fractures, or decisions and actions that must be taken. And because the moon is usually connected to home and Mars is in the temple of the home, because of relationship situations or maybe major changes and decisions regarding home and where you're going to live or where you live or where you want to live. Because the moon is reflecting that chironic wound. Are you my home? Are you my home? As you've been looking for a place of belonging or a feeling like you belong within the home itself. Now, Jupiter favorably looks at that moon from the sixth house and therefore tells the moon not to worry. If you need work or a job or livelihood, employment, then you're going to find it happening. There shouldn't be no problem. And Jupiter also suggests to the moon, if you need to find a home, we'll find you a beautiful, spacious, lovely rental. That's a story there as well. Check out the details, though, because Jupiter can't see them. In Gemini, it may look good on paper. You want to make sure that there's not a problem, but otherwise, rental property opportunities look pretty sweet for you in the month after the moon itself, but even up to 6 months later. Mars is flowing to that stellium as he also squares the moon. The stellium in your third house. The third house is the house of your neighbors, the neighborhood, travel, short distance, things to do with writing and creative, social media land, things to do with projects that are marketing and selling. There's a lot going on there. Now, because it's neighbors and neighborhood, right? And Mars is, angling favorably there. You may find yourself making some decisions to change your neighborhood. But again, it may be connected to relationships, significant endings in relationships or decisions being made in the context of that relationship. Surprises and shocks in the house of good fortune is Algol, well star, Uranus in your fifth house. The fifth house Algol Uranus story down here is in a beautiful flow to the North Node with exalted Venus in the third house. If you're going to have some good fortune with money or finances, it could come through a sibling. It could come through matters to do with things in the local neighborhood, like you go to the bingo hall or the casino and you win, or, I guess you buy a ticket usually at a local kiosk. Those things get work for you here. And that would be a very destined increase for you of some financial fortune. Technically, with Mars getting ready to move into the eighth house on April 18th, that it could also be some financial fortune that has to do with shared resources in a settlement or separation of assets in a relationship, and you're hitting the jackpot and you feel fortunate. That could happen here too. All right, Aquarius. Yes, yes, yes. I am indeed one of you. So what is happening for us? Well, number one, it looks like we've got a story where we have been enduring an eclipse cycle through the sign of Libra that has asked us to let go, surrender, and release ninth house matters, but at the same time bring soulful and destined factors to our life in that ninth house. These eclipses would have done things like soulful and destined third marriages, soulful and destined travel to foreign shores and lands that felt familiar, pilgrimages for spiritual questing. Yes, I went to El Camino. I think it was more about the food and the bread. Things to do with connections to book publishing industry, editors and agents. I got an agent chasing my tail during this cycle. The North Node is literally also has been moving through the third house, increasing your and inflaming your chironic wound around neighbors, neighborhood, childhood friends, siblings, and writing. And so this story has been all going on during the eclipses of 23, 24. Those eclipses are no longer here. But the moon is where one of the eclipses was and where the eclipses repeated, especially the fall of 23 eclipse. So in essence, it looks to me like you're having some final say, a last hurrah with this moon kind of shine some light into what those eclipses were for, because we just had the last Aries eclipse, of course, at 9 degrees on April the 30th or 29th, 30th. March 30th or 29th. My brain has gone offline. A full light, a fulfillment, a revelation in the ninth house can bring you into a real powerful place in life when it comes to aligning with your dharma. And because there's a lot of support from Jupiter in the fifth house, being on purpose with creativity, with art, with entrepreneurship, and successful and prosperous and bounteous and lucky. However, Jupiter in your fifth house with the moon in your ninth can represent the birth of children or grandchildren, most likely grandchildren, but either the conception or birth of children or grandchildren may occur sometime in the month after or up to 6 months after the full moon in Libra in your ninth house. Mars is cutting and severing and ending or fighting and bossing people around in the sixth house of work. He is in what we call the house of his joy, but he's also debilitated or fallen in Cancer, which could indicate maybe you've been going too hard at work, working too hard, especially January through to mid-April, but also September, October. He can get into workaholism in his fall in the house of livelihood and work. And also you might have had some challenges to your health during this time as well, especially with Mars, like heat, rashes, maybe digestive health. And Mars is, still here and he's still fallen. And, in his square to the moon from the sixth house, you may have a need to make a decision or take an action that's pretty definitive regarding, let's say, home and foreign lands, home and rental properties. And with Mars in a sextile, more or less, to Uranus, that could be shocking, surprising opportunities for a new home connected to rental properties. That's a thing the moon might want to bring you, because Mars is hooking up to the moon, and the moon does represent home, matters of the home. I love the stellium in the second house. It's so good for your finances. There's a lot of beautiful money stories going on, earnings, resources, self-worth, value, increase of financial stature, abilities to drop addictions and self-undoing, destined, fated increase of wealth. And that stellium in your natal second house, Venus, Saturn, North Node, and you look for emails, phone calls, and text messages coming close to the April 12th moon, connected to the word rental properties, changes in your home, job opportunities, etc. And we'll be talking about Mars moving into Leo and opposing Pluto on a weekly video, but that's going to be very explosive energy for you and significant others. So stay tuned for more of my videos, because that's a really important time coming up for you in the end of April. All right, that's what I got. Let's see what happens. Destined chunky money stories too that surprised you and can bring you wealth. Something as simple as getting a tax rebate. I think I paid too much money for my personal taxes, and I'll get a chunky tax money back. I'm hoping anyway, but surprise. Oh my goodness. All right, I'm so hungry. This fasting thing. All right, Pisces, sun, moon, and rising sign. At the very basic level, the first thing you need to look at is how beautifully appointed you are. You have a stellium with an exalted Venus in the sign of you, this rare Pisces pileup we haven't seen in our lifetimes. And so And when Neptune was there, it was even more beautiful. Understand that you are being given a chance in life like you've never had before to exalt your own self, your sun, your career, your moon, exalt your home, your Pisces rising, exalt whatever you want, your marriage, your home, your career. Like you are getting very powered up here. You are like a superhero for yourself, you know, Wonder Woman and Superman. You got it. So that's the first thing I want you to know. And destiny is expanding you and giving you worldly success personally in your sun, in your career, in your moon with your home life or fertility matters maybe, and in your ascendant, all of you is being exalted. Your appearance, your work, your career, your relationships. Well, except for your marriage. So you do have the South Node maybe through the marriage house, but we're going to cover that in another video. And that could you're going to pay less attention and detach from the needs of your spouse kind of thing. If you have a spouse, maybe it's just that, you're more important for a change or something like that. Now, one thing about this moon, the fulfilling energy, it's in the chunky money house. And this is the money you share with your spouse. This is the tax monies, insurance monies, payouts, money that comes in a chunk, commission checks, royalty income, investments that take off, and you got a chunk of money. Inheritances. Some of you may have had inheritances already, starting sometime since last May, because you've got Jupiter in the 4th house and you kept having the moon move through the 8th, and there's inheritances connected to property and real estate from your family or your partner's family. That's true for my Pisces sister. And you have Jupiter favorably loving this moon up from the 4th house, giving you some financial gains in and from the home, to prosper in and from your home, or to have children or grandchildren coming into your world. Those are stories that may occur, more children, more grandchildren over the next, 6 months after the moon. But there's a square from Mars to the moon, and Mars is like the guy who cuts and ends. And you may have to find a clean break from a child, like maybe an adult-child relationship, or the child, some challenges with an adult child or a child and their piggy bank around money matters. But there's a need to cut. Now you may cut and sever also a romantic relationship off of this. You could do that because you'll have a revelatory light of the moon in the 8th house telling you why you need to end that relationship. The moon is also, of course, square the sun, and the sun is in Aries, and that's your chironic wound around your money. Some Pisces have had facial wounds, really, like literally something wrong with your face, your teeth, maybe wounds to your self-esteem and self-value, maybe wounds to your dietary style. You realize you're eating the wrong foods, drinking the wrong foods, or whatever, and wounds to your money. Ever since 2019, as Chiron entered here, and this is continuing and doesn't end until 27, but there's a definite intent by the sky to blast through these wounds right now. I know 2 Pisces who just had teeth problems, really immense, like energy pivotal here to finally break through the facial wound, nose, mouth, teeth, throat, even face, 2nd house. You could also break through a wound connected to your family of origin and also to your voice, how you wish to be in voice, vocation, and calling. What is your true vocation? And you're trying to heal that wound as well, which is maybe why there's no money, because you didn't want to do stuff that didn't mean anything to you. And certainly having Neptune enter in there, you begin to dream the real dream of how you wish to make money and become aligned with purpose, especially this summer. But I would say to you that with Mars cutting from the 5th house, there's a lot about Dharma, being on purpose, but you could also make some very powerful decisions to start an entrepreneurial direction if you haven't done that before, coming off of this moon. And maybe, Mars has been here for so long. January, February, March, April, and also September, October, maybe other than conflicts with your children, maybe the whole, part of your life that's creative, romantic, or whatever. I just felt like really underwater, like a lot of work, like a lot of work instead of fun. And so Mars is leaving. I mean, and you don't have to feel that way anymore. He'll be gone on the 18th of April. Some shocking, surprising 3rd house matters, a big, unexpected, surprising developments with siblings, aunts, uncles, cousins, neighbors, maybe wealth from some of these people. Uranus is on a wealth star, flowing back to exalted Venus, who's about money. So some unexpected money from some of these peoples and places coming through your sky. And Mars is witnessing it from the 5th house. And so he's all down for some good fortune financially, but it would come likely from aunts, uncles, cousins, nieces, nephews, and siblings. That would be a story for you. And I do think that with Uranus in their third house, you might have some big breakthroughs in social media, online world, and websites coming through your sky as well that make you feel really good about being you, or writing projects as well, should that be something you're up to. All right. Thank you, Pisces, for listening. Don't forget, guys, to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. It helps the channel grow. I'm heading off for my birthday to a mountain community. I finishes at 3:33 my time. So my next recording will be coming out on Sunday. This video comes out on Thursday. And I don't know if I'm going to change my weekly videos to Sundays now instead of Mondays and do the week aheads on Sunday. And maybe put another video out on Tuesday and another one Thursday. I'm thinking of changing the order of events because it just breaks my production schedule down a bit in a more useful and easy way for me. So stay tuned for that. New schedule might be Sunday week ahead, Tuesday, whatever I want, Thursday, whatever I want. So I think that's what's going to happen going forward. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, check the description box below for everything you might want to know about in my world. Thank you, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.